She's a civil rights legend. It's Ayanna Najuma. Good to have you here. And I'm going to tell people who you are, and you're going to help me tell who you are. Let's start with a photograph. Katz Drugstore, 60 years ago. The building is gone, just an empty lot now. There you are at the counter. This was the integration of the counter there at Katz, and that was just kind of the beginning, but you're 7 years old. So for people that need a little history lesson, what happened to that day that that picture was made?
First of all, Clara Luper and my mother were very good friends. They were like sisters. Clara had written a play called Brother President, had been invited to New York City to present the play. I was a part of the cast. We ended up going the northern route to present the play and returning the southern route. While we were in New York, we experienced all the equities that anyone else had experienced. We were able to eat in restaurants, go to restrooms that didn't have colored and white signs. We were able to stay in hotels. So coming back, the children that were on the trip decided that under the real suggestion of Marilyn Luper Hildreth, Clara's daughter, that if we saw all this going on in New York, why can't we experience it here in Oklahoma? So after about a year and a half of conversations by the adults with the city fathers here in Oklahoma City, the children decided enough is enough and we needed to do something about it. So this was the first sit-in, August 19, 1958 at Katz Drugstore.
Now, 60 years later, you saw that picture of that little girl at 7 years old 60 years ago. What kind of world could you envision 60 years later when that photograph was taken?
I would think that the issues around sexual harassment, around LGBT, around any issue that deals with inequality would not be a conversation today. That everyone would be equal, we'd have health care, we'd have jobs, we'd have housing, and there would be a lot of equality, but that is not the case. And so now we find ourselves trying to come up with solutions to address age-old problems in a 21st century world.
So those were courageous children there with Clara Luper and her friends and associates there. Now, what are you doing 60 years later to further this cause?
I found myself being invited to join Julia Clifford to speak about my experiences when we screened her documentary called Children of the Civil Rights. And while I was in New York and looking at a sea full of young people, the idea came to me that I needed to create a movement called I Have a Voice Now. And so now I'm in the process of going around the country asking young people what's important to them. If they could change the world, what would be one of the first things that they would do in their own communities to make the world better? And I was on the cover of the Weekly Reader last year, the first, second, third, and fourth grade. 5 million children read my story. And as a result of that, I've received 25,000 letters from children who say that I want to make a difference, that the courage was important, that being determined is important, and they wanted to make their own future a better place.
All right, about 30 seconds left. These children, let's say 7-year-olds today, what kind of world do you want to see them have 60 years from now?
I don't want them to have this conversation. I want them to have erased all the inequities of life and to have placed their own children in a position of power, of equity, of equality, and that we don't have to sit around and talk about this issue ever, ever again.
Ayanna Najuma, it's so nice to meet you. At some point, we're going to have a monument down there where Katz Drugstore was. I think Mr. Lackmeyer's working on that right now.
I'm looking forward to it.
So nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. See this again at news9.com/yourvotecounts, and follow me, Scott Mitchell, on Twitter @MitchellTalks.